Hello, everyone. Welcome to Startup Grand Rapids in West Michigan. The weather has been very warm. The summer is here. Everybody's enjoying the holidays, and COVID is rampaging every part of the reopening. The views are contradictory. The liquidity from the financial institutions benefiting from loose monetary policy is increasing. And guess what? The financial markets are rocking and rolling. On the currency front, as we normally do, we see the dollar is beginning to trade on the upper side. It's losing ground a little bit. We are seeing that the euro is strengthening at about 113, almost about whole 1% up. For the time being, the markets are hoping that this liquidity will be driving the recovery. More important than that, however, is what the bond market is saying. The bond market across the world is saying that we're not convinced. Look at Asia. Japan anchored at 0%. Central bank is very successful, together with Australia, in controlling the yield curve. The rest of Asia has seen minimal changes in the 10-year bond yields, and this is a reflection of the uncertainty that we're seeing in these markets. In Europe, the European markets are also remaining relatively well bid on the fixed income side. The laggards, low growth Italy and Greece, are trading well, whereas Germany and Switzerland, the other extreme, are stuck at minus 0.4%. Portugal is trading at 0.4, has benefited enormously from the bid on the fixed income market and from the fact that the local economy is doing fairly well by European standards. In the Americas, a small sell-off, minor in the United States. The 10-year has a yield of 0.7%. Canada, Brazil, and Mexico are all well bid, which essentially brings the question, what is happening to commodities? On the commodity front, believe it or not, energies are leading the way together with gold. West Texas Intermediate is trading over $40 comfortably. Brent 43 and change, and natural gas 1.8. Here in the US, the advent of summer means more air conditioning, ergo higher consumption of natural gas. And with a little bit of traveling around 4th of July, we've seen that West Texas remains well bid. Gold, as I mentioned, has had a stellar performance. We're very close to 1800, and I wouldn't be surprised if soon we will see 1900. Again, fears of inflation, debasing the currency, are essentially pushing the price of gold higher. On copper is very close to 280. We're seeing that data from China is indicating growth in manufacturing. Copper at almost 280 is a clear indication that manufacturing around the world is picking up. The grains have done very well so far today. The relationship with China seems to be experiencing ebbs and flows, and we will see over the next few weeks and months how this relationship evolves. However, one thing is clear, the world economy has not fallen off a cliff, at least not yet. When we look at the markets, we always conclude our review by looking at the equities market. And today, believe it or not, is one of these days where green is everywhere. You can see all of Asia is green. From a high of 6.5% in China, the markets have rallied phenomenally in China, 6.5%. The Dow Jones Shanghai Index is almost 5.9% higher. This positive development is anchored on expectations that Chinese growth is picking up. On the back of Chinese growth, we see Europe also being on a positive note, anywhere from 3.3% in Amsterdam to 2% in Istanbul, to 1.3% in Milan, 1.9% in Spain, and 0.6% in Portugal. So the markets, the equity markets are rocking and rolling, and everyone is saying that this liquidity will actually keep moving into the equities. This is what we're seeing. To our audience, entrepreneurs and investors alike, we always suggest, please do not trade on any of the presentations we made. Our presentations are simply for educational purposes. If you feel compelled to trade, call your broker or visit a priest. It is not the time to be particularly risky. We recommend caution and we recommend paying attention to the fundamentals. Back to you, Corey.
Thank you, George. Yeah, it's been a busy last week and especially weekend for news, but I'm excited to talk more about our local ecosystems throughout the globe. And we have a very special guest. We have Stela here from Lisbon, and she is the chapter director for Startup Grind there. Stela, hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me to joining you today.
Yeah, and of all the Startup Grind directors, there's over 600 of us. You have quite a bit of fame. You have a great great history within the organization and a lot of respect. So thank you for all the contribution that you make to the community. We are very interested in actually learning a little bit more about you personally and how you found Startup Grind.
Okay, yeah, well, I moved to Lisbon 2 years ago. I was living in Dubai before, and I've been creating communities for quite some time. So I was in Dubai, I was organizing TEDx events, and I was also driving Lean In, a community for women empowerment. And then when I moved to Lisbon, I started to I was already working in tech, but with the idea of creating my own business. So there was no startup grind in Lisbon, and then I talked to a few locals, and we decided to start Startup Grind Lisbon. So we are super happy. The response has been really good. And we are actually really enjoying the virtual events. I mean, we miss the face-to-face, but I think the good thing about this is we have managed to get a lot of people together that maybe before it was more challenging, and to talk to a lot of other people. And we have also on the pipeline really interesting speakers that in different circumstances will be difficult to get in person. So I think that so far the virtual events are really working for us.
Awesome. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about the organization that you're a founder of?
The organization, sorry?
There's the organization that you're the founder of. Could you tell us? Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm the founder of Digital, which is basically a recruitment agency to help tech companies hiring more women. As I say, I'm really an advocate for women empowerment and equality. And I realized, so last year what happened is I was a speaker at the Web Summit. I don't know if you heard about it. It's like, there is Collision in Toronto, and Web Summit is the biggest tech conference in Europe. And I was speaking there on the same topic of women in tech. And a few companies started to approach me, asking me, okay, I want to hire more women. I see the business case, I see the point, and we are failing. So how can we get these women? Can you help? And then a few people started to ask me, and my husband and I always say that you shouldn't start a business unless someone asks you for it. So I was like, okay, I think this is, and I've been going around like thinking, how can I add value? How can I add value? And this was for me the point where I realized that I was on the perfect spot because of my community work for years with women, and especially focused on women in tech. And now suddenly the business case is every day more obvious. So companies were also naturally approaching me because I've been on the forefront of this for a while, at least locally. So yeah, that's how it started. And I also met my co-founder at the Web Summit. We knew each other before, but not in person. So yeah, it really worked out, and well, we had a really great start. Then obviously COVID started, so everything froze. But now things are starting to pick up again. We kind of shifted a bit our focus But yeah, it's all working quite well. So we are really happy.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. I guess I'd like to start with a question related to that since we landed there. And I know that's a lot to ask, but maybe real as quickly as you can, like maybe speak to your general feeling about gender equity and the possibilities or opportunities now with that COVID presents. Globally, we see that there is an equity grab, right? And it's an opportunity, but it doesn't it's not just given, right? But we spoke to a chapter director outside of Nairobi in Kenya, and they have a public fund specifically to benefit women entrepreneurs. And same thing as far as trying to get more women entrepreneurs in Santiago, Chile. There are programs, and so we're hearing one by one different programs. From your point of view, are you hopeful with this pandemic as things become more globalized as far as ideas and hopefully capital?
Yes, I am a positive person, and I'm trying to stay positive on these times. Although we all know that it's kind of like ups and downs. Some days you feel really positive about it, and some other days not that much. But yeah, I see the positive side. Especially, I think, like I was saying, one of the biggest points being that now everyone is working from home. So we all know what it is to take care of the house and work and the kids at the same time. I think it has been made very obvious the workload, all the unpaid work that women do. But also, I think since a lot of people is losing jobs, a lot of people had also that idea to start their own business, but maybe they were too comfortable at work. And now this is a really good opportunity for people to really do what they have been thinking, but not having the mental space or whatever to put into action. And I think now it's a good time to turn a situation that might be initially, of course, losing a job is horrible, but that you can turn that with the help, of course, of programs and the people around you into an opportunity, and actually something so much better than what you had before, right? So here in Portugal, we have been in conversation with a few founders about the topic. We also were in the same conversation. We invited Isabela Birta, who is in charge of the Department of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the Lisbon City Council. And we are looking for ways to collaborate and create programs. There are not specific programs for women at the moment, but there are programs for everyone. And of course, they are looking for diversity. But what we are saying is that women might need an extra support, right, to maybe apply for those programs or to get passed. I had many conversations around this topic, and it's a tricky question because it might be misinterpreted when you say that there are specific programs for women, but in my opinion, they are totally necessary. So I want to see more of that, and I'm happy to hear that the people you have been interviewing in Nairobi and in Chile, they're also getting programs for women. I think is crucial.
Awesome. So because my connection is pretty terrible, I'm actually going to hand this over to George so that he may lead with a few questions. But if I can't pop in later, I just want to really appreciate you making the time to join us. So George.
Perfect. Thank you.
Stella, thank you for this introduction. It is quite impressive, actually, that in terms of social engineering, if you want to call it, or progress, we're beginning to see that this pandemic is accelerating reglobalization, but at a higher level. In other words, although there were some advocates who were saying that COVID will lead to deglobalization, what we're beginning to see is that there's a more meaningful conversation, there's a more purposeful conversation. And what you're doing in Lisbon is really very interesting. I was really encouraged to hear that the city of Lisbon has a Department of Innovation. Starting from this, can you give us a little bit of description as to what is the infrastructure for a startup in Lisbon at the moment? So in other words, if I was going to set up my own company, I have a wonderful idea, would I start with friends and family first? Would I go to an incubator, an accelerator? Would I use European funds? Would I go to any VCs? What is the typical way? What does the ecosystem look like?
So there are many options here, and this is really nice to see that not only the Council of Lisbon but also Portugal as a country, they are creating institutions that are public that are supporting entrepreneurs. So you have Startup Portugal, which is a public institution fostering entrepreneurship, and they do different programs, and they operate. What I love from them is like they operate as a startup themselves. So for example, just to give you an example of something, I was checking their website recently, and whenever they have an idea and they want to test it, instead of creating the program, they just put it on their website and they ask people to subscribe to hear more from that idea. So they don't like, so I really like that. So although they are public, they just are very lean. And I like that because they are leading by example. Also, if you are based in Lisbon, you have Startup Lisboa, which is also like semi-public institution. You have to pay, I think, for the co-working there and for being part of the ecosystem, but it's like a minimal, like something very, very little, like 40, 50 euros. At least I remember from last time I checked. And then they will help you. So of course, you have to apply to be selected. They also have other programs. There was recently a program from the Council of Lisbon to like a fund for SMEs. Also, during the COVID, actually, we started a movement called Tech for COVID-19, a group of, yeah. Okay, there you are. Yeah, so Startup Lisbon is usually the place where everyone meets. And as I said, they do a lot of community work as well, and they have really nice offices right in the center of Lisbon. And yeah, it's a really good place to be based. Also, they were recently doing, they do some awards. So they talk to institutions to get some prize money, and they do different awards. So people that are part of them, they can go for these awards. And most of the companies going public, even, I don't know if you are familiar with Defined Crowd from Daniela Braga. They just signed like 50 million very recently. It's like an AI based thing. Now they are based in Seattle, but they started in here in Startup Lisboa. So
really, that company was founded in Lisbon?
Yeah. Defined Crowd.
Congratulations, that's great. That must be a tremendous boosting mechanism for the next generation of developers.
Yeah. So I mean, it's really good to see that someone who started here, right, in Startup Lisboa now is doing such a big work and getting so much funding as Daniela Braga. And also, for example, very recently, Indico Capital is a VC firm. One of the co-founders, Cristina Fonseca, she was co-founder of one of the second biggest unicorn in Portugal, and now she partnered with this Indico Capital with a startup, Google for Startups, and they created a fund. I think also like a 50 million fund or something. Really, really cool. And they just closed the applications last month, but they are still accepting late applications. And they are creating also a program with like an accelerator and everything. So we're gonna have an event with them in a few months with the startups that went through their program. Also, there is a lot of baggage here. Like there is a lot of Portugal. I'm not Portuguese, but I'm Spanish. But I love the Portuguese culture, and I think there are so much more entrepreneurs than Spain. And what I mean is like they are a country that they are at the coast, right? They are really facing the coast and is so much smaller than Spain. So they historically they have been more entrepreneurial, and they had to go outside, right? Because in Spain you have a big market, most entrepreneurs they launch in Spain. You have 4 times more people or more, so that's it. But in Portugal you actually have very little people. So if you launch here, you have to think internationally right away. And I think that's one of the big advantages of the Portuguese culture that I see with entrepreneurship, is that they think global very fast. And it's something I really, really like from here. Also, yeah.
No, please continue. Finish with your thoughts.
No, I was going to say that actually one of our partners, EDP Starter, which is basically the biggest electric company here in Portugal. They also are international. I think they are like in 14, 15 countries. And they have an accelerator program for companies that they are based on the energy sector. So they are always looking to innovate on energy saving and sustainability. And they also do a lot of they do a big labor as well in entrepreneurship. They had an accelerator program before. They had an incubator. Now it's more focused on companies that they already have initial products and how to scale it. But yeah, there is a big ecosystem. It looks like a tiny place compared, like Lisbon is not such a big city. There is a lot going on here, and more people is coming.
This is actually impressive and very unusual. The way you describe the system, it's almost like you have a mini Vancouver, right? You have the public sector, you have the private sector, you have the government, you have Europe, the European institutions promoting growth, and more important, you have a mindset that is global.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit, please, about the sectors that you see in your communities? What sectors are these startups taking place? And more importantly, in which sectors do you see women entrepreneurs emerging?
Mm-hmm. So, for example, Lisbon is the green capital of 2020. So they have been doing a lot of effort on sustainability for some time now, but especially this year. And actually, recently there was a program for women for climate. So there was this special program to enable more women to start startups related to sustainability and climate and to stop the climate change and all of this. So it's really good that I just remember about that program. So it's very focused. What I see, the things that are really happening here is sustainability is a big one. Actually, they created Portugal, the country created last year. They started a program called a Green Visa. So it's basically if you want to move to Portugal as an investor or start your own business, you can start, if you start a green business in the sense of sustainability, you can access one kind of visa to be a resident in the country.
Similar to what Canada has done, correct?
I'm not sure about Canada, but it might be, yeah. Yeah, so it's really good to see that sustainability is really taking shape, and there are different, in all the country, there have been different programs in regards to sustainability. Also, like I said, this electric company, EDP, they also do a big effort on sustainability. And we also see like tourism was a big one here. So there were a lot of events and a lot of investments going on. Sorry, my dog was just here messing up. So there was a lot of things going on tourism because obviously Portugal is a big tourist destination, and there is still going on a lot. For example, like I think I was reading today, the minister of tourism was saying that they got an award with one of the top countries on safety. I think it's because of the low numbers of COVID and also the way it was managed, the response. So tourism sector was a big one, which obviously has been affected now. But innovation within the tourism sector, it was a big investment here. I think also in software, AI, we have seen a lot of, in our network, we have a few companies doing things in AI. Like we have, on our last meeting, we had Y Data and with a co-founder, Fabiana. And we were also interviewing another AI-based company. So AI, we have seen a few companies here and data. So it's quite interesting, the ecosystem. Very diverse.
When you look, being the director of Startup Grind, clearly you talk to companies, you also talk to entrepreneurs and investors. What is the mindset at the moment? What is the perception? In other words, we have had a fantastic 2018-19, at least here in North America in terms of growth. We've seen a lot of innovation. We've seen some terrific IPOs, and suddenly we get hit by a challenge. What is the mindset at the moment of your community?
The mindset is let's carry on, and that's what I'm seeing. For example, this week we were seeing one company called Barking that they do. I don't know how to translate it. They do food for dogs and a subscription for veterinary, and they just raised 5 million on a second round last week. So we are seeing investment carry on. I mean, obviously there was a few months where everything stopped because everyone was in shock. But the last few months, we have seen things are going back to normal, the most normal that we can. Investments are going back, as I mentioned. Like we already know a few companies that they have been raising money the last few months. So we seem it seems to everyone is going back to normal. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's great to see this, because sometimes the press doesn't tell the truth, or at least not the whole truth. In our case, what is fascinating is that we've seen valuations change a little bit, but not dramatically. Do you see valuations changing in Lisbon, or things have remained as they were before the crisis?
I wouldn't be able to say that because I haven't taken a closer look enough to say. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, compared with the US situation, I think it's quite difficult to say, especially because the market in the US is kind of acting totally unexpected ways compared with what is happening in reality. So, I mean, I'm not, I mean, we don't really know. It's a bit difficult, no? The entire thing, yeah.
Sure. In terms of the source of capital, and a young entrepreneur, would she or he be able to access a group of angel investors if the entrepreneur did not want to go through the incubation process or the show process where they win an award or whatever? Are there angel investor groups active in Portugal?
There are some groups of angel investors. Yeah, there are like there are some groups. I haven't really had the chance to talk much to angel investors. And that's now you actually brought a really good point that I'm going to share with my team, because maybe this is also something we haven't tackled yet, and something we should definitely put our heads to. So I'm going to make sure we address this. I don't really have much contact with the angel investors. I mean, I have a few friends who do angel investment, but not at that level where I can assess what is happening.
One of my last questions is as follows, and then I'll let Corey continue the conversation. We noticed that when you have successful stories like you do have in Portugal, these entrepreneurs become mentors. They, in their own right, spawn new ideas, new ecosystems, and so on. Do you have this sense that Portugal is going through the next generation of ideas?
Yeah, we see a lot of people, like I say. Excuse me 1 second. I wanted to mute myself, but I have that. Okay, so we see a lot of previous entrepreneurs now becoming VCs. Um, I'm back. So we see that a lot happening, both in the sense of they could become, they start funds and they also become mentors. And I think in that sense, this startup Lisbon, I'm now losing my voice. But yes, we see startup Lisbon and startup Portugal creating mentorship programs, as well as other, for example, Portuguese Women in Tech, they also create mentorship programs. So we see a lot of mentoring going on here as well, and I think that's really important.
Thank you very much. What a wonderful interview. You're lucky to be in on the other shore of the Atlantic, to have access to the huge Brazilian continent. I'm sure there must be a lot of relations with Brazil, aren't there?
Yes, actually, there are a lot of founders as well from Brazil starting business here, and there is quite a lot of interaction. Yeah, but I think that's one of the things of Portugal, that they are very inclusive, or that's what it feels like being a foreigner here. You are never, you always feel part of it, right? I mean, obviously, everyone tries to speak English, and everyone actually speaks English here. But if you speak Portuguese, obviously you have access to more close relationships. But it's a very inclusive place, and there's also a lot of people from Brazil here starting things and doing things. So it's really good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, and that's really great that we landed there. What some of the last questions that we enjoy asking everyone first is what do you think that the Startup Grind community globally can do for you, Stela, personally, and then also for your chapter and your region?
I wouldn't say what they can do for us, for our region. That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think just be, for me, I think that what I will say is just be authentic, be caring, especially in this time. Remove judgment and listen to people for real without, like remove your initial biases that you have against anyone or towards anyone, and just try to connect with people for like in real, right? Removing the ego and the judgment. I would say now more than ever, we need to be more human towards each other and try to look what makes us more similar instead of what makes us different.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, as we move forward, from this conversation and we get back into our daily lives and we push through this next weeks and months, if you do think of anything that we can do for you as a Startup Grind community, please do not hesitate to ask, especially with what George and I are doing here with our Hunting for Silver Linings. Is we're finding so many opportunities for individual connections between the different regions and connections that people might not have thought would be possible to exist. And so we're really excited about that. So yeah, just keep that in mind and moving forward. And then one of the other last things that we like to ask people is, as the sort of startup and tech scene mayor of your region and your community, and I know that you're just started the community there very recently, but what are some of the questions you're getting, or what is some of the advice that you find yourself giving to entrepreneurs right now?
Well, I think lately it has been, where do I start? We got a lot of new people trying considering starting new businesses because they're due to all the job losses. So I think the biggest question right now for a lot of people is, where do I start? And what should I follow, right? I think there is so much advice out there right now on the internet that is really difficult to create the information. So a lot of people feel confused on what should they start. So I always try to recommend them to start lean, and before they do all the work, to make sure that my advice mainly is talk to users, and then you can create whatever, but don't spend 4 months working on something if you haven't talked to anyone and you don't know if people really want it. So that's basically my advice.
Yeah, we're finding a lot of organizations, especially the small ones, have to like really make sure that their customer is still there, that they still exist, that their business is still relevant at all, right? Very cool. George, any last questions before we wrap up?
Muchas gracias. Adiós y hasta la vista.
Yeah. So any last any questions for us, Stella, or any last thoughts that we can share with the community? Okay.
Now, good to spend some time here with you, and all the best. Thank you very much for the invitation.
And we always mention to our participants, to the startup community, Stella, we have resources, we can help, we can bring these resources to bear. And as Corey has mentioned, we are now making this discussion deeper and more relevant. Like in many ways, this is a great opportunity for startups. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. So truly grateful for the generosity of your time, Stella, and look forward to future connections. And then one day when we can do things in real life, maybe George and I will come over and we'll share a meal together. Who knows?
Perfect.
All right. Well,
thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day. Okay, Stella? Really appreciate
You too.
it. All right. Ciao.
Bye.